104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens. It is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 181.
181.
Yeah, I've done 181 of these. We watched a lot of movies, man.
That is a lot.
Documentary we discussed this week was Jay's pick. It's on Max. It's called Quiet on the Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV.
Yeah.
So
Nickelodeon.
Go ahead.
Nickelodeon.
Well, yeah. I mean, Nickelodeon isn't the only channel that does children's television, but this one focused on, more specifically, a producer named Dan Schneider and some of the kids he worked with. I really would love to reach across this table and punch you as hard as I can.
Me?
For suggesting this. I thought we had kind of agreed on a rule that we weren't going to do any kid stuff.
Oh, I forgot about that rule.
Every time we bring it up, we're like, I mean, like
it always makes us both very upset.
And then so I'm thinking like this is just going to be a 1.5 hour movie, 2 hours tops. No, it's like 7 episodes.
They stretched it
7 hours
of
just watching just over and over and over, just like, oh, you failed this kid. Oh, you failed this kid.
Yeah,
oh, you enabled this guy, and you failed this kid. Oh, you failed this kid. Oh, you enabled this guy.
But some of the parents were involved and still like.
Well, or I wouldn't say. I mean, we want to say involved directly, but ignorance and putting your kids into. I mean, like some of the situations where you had kids like literally alone with just one guy, and everyone's told to leave. That's a suspect.
Yeah, a little.
I'll tell you right now, if someone were like, in regards to Ollie, like if they're like, "Hey, this kid's good looking, we think he could be a great actor," that kid's not leaving my side. Like if he's acting, I'm on off camera standing there. I'm that.
Well, that one dad seemed to do that. Drake Bell's dad, he seemed to do it, and he's still somehow the ball got dropped. Man.
We'll talk about this very tough subject. It is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 181. Send your complaints to Jay Stevens. We'll be back next on 104.7 The Cave. 104.7 The Cave is Springfield's pure classic rock. Today on Dark Side of the Stream, we are discussing Quiet on the Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV, which discusses a lot of shows on Netflix. Now, all these shows that were produced by Dan Schneider, All That, The Amanda Show, Zoe 101, Drake and Josh, they all kind of came out after I was a kid, so I didn't watch.
Okay, so this was like you were a teenager, maybe during this.
12. I was already way beyond.
My middle daughter had watched I remember this stuff.
Yeah, and my wife.
Nickelodeon was a big thing. The slime thing and all that stuff.
Well, the slime stuff was like my generation. You can't do that on television. Some of that stuff that was like my time. And then this was kind of the crossover where they started really introducing what I would call kids sitcoms, right?
Yeah, and really kid variety shows.
Yeah, they didn't really have a lot. I mean, all that's more of a variety kind of skit show, but really, like, I think Schneider, when in his mind, was like, maybe we should develop these shows like adults do, but for children.
iCarly, and things like that.
Again, it's a sitcom for kids, which up until this point didn't really exist. You had sitcoms that were like family stuff, right?
I mean, it seems like a smart hustle, a smart play.
From that perspective, as long as no one gets abused, but they could not come forward with this stuff. So yeah, it's really, really tough to see some of these kids that have come forward since then talking about what they went through. Also, I mean, nothing is worth this. Like, don't be sitting there saying, well, I mean, you got to be an actor.
You got to make some money, be famous.
You got to be famous. Like, that's not worth that. There's nothing that
No, definitely not.
Not worth that at all.
It seems like, though, you can do it and not go down the dark paths. But it just seems like you got to be aware of situations, perhaps, because it seems like some of the kids were like, no, everything was fine. And then some of these guys were like, no, everything was not fine, It
was almost as if, from what we've seen and what we've done, as far as when kids are involved in abuse, that's kind of the MO. You pick your target
or something,
and based on what you do, and that's all you focus on, because you want to do it. You don't want to be like all the time, I would assume, right? So you just kind of do that. And from what we've seen and we've talked about that's kind of the way predators work and operate. You know what I mean?
Because you didn't see any of the big stars in this documentary that came from that era. Ariana Grande.
Again, yeah. And some of those guys were like, they were great. They didn't do anything.
Right.
Again, they went for the ones that they thought
you
they
hear
could
the
get
Drake
away with.
Bell kid doing. It's like, whoa.
Oh, he
went deep with
that
what
was
happened.
a very we can talk more about Drake next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.
Yeah.
Mike, the intern, Jay Stevens, discussing where I should have a picture of me in the studio. Either way, it's Dark Side of the Stream, episode 181, discussing Quiet on the Set, the dark side of kids' TV. So Jay brought up Drake Bell, who has definitely got a big part, more specifically in the third episode of this series, where he discusses and talks about a former Nickelodeon dialogue coach, Brian Peck, who was arrested and charged in 2003 for child sexual abuse, but the victim's name had been sealed. Now we know who that victim was. Really, really sad. Letters to the presiding judge in support.
Gosh, right?
That's the thing. Like
all these famous actors supporting this guy.
One of the ones that really kind of broke me a little bit was James Marsden, who is he's a dude in Sonic, but he also was in Westworld,
right? Yeah.
And I was like, he was Cyclops, and I was like, I just, they always say, like, in your marriage, right, your wife or your significant other is like, you got to be on their team no matter what.
Yes,
I get that. Like, you don't go around with your friends and you're all drinking, hanging out, and be like, you know what, he sucks in bed, or he's too fat, or she doesn't cook good enough, or whatever. You don't do that. You build your partner up, right? I get that in a sense with friendships to a point, though. Like, if Jay went out and killed someone, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, be like, hey, Judge, he's a really good dude, man.
Like,
we did 181 episodes of Dark Side, and
I'm not gonna get involved at that point. Like, I'll support you as my friend and be like, you're an idiot. I can't believe you killed someone.
But you have to cut ties too.
Like, I'm not gonna be like, especially when it comes to child abuse.
Well,
like, that's the thing. Like, all these people. And now you go out on a limb here and say, I'm gonna stand up for this guy. And then he gets convicted of child sexual abuse. You're standing up for a child abuse.
Right. And,
that's it.
There was supposedly one of them flip-flopped. They said, well, when I wrote the letter, they didn't tell me what it was for, really. They downplayed what the charges were or something, but
he wasn't the only one.
Right. There
was another production assistant, Jason Michael Handy, which that guy should have never been hired and put around kids with a name like that.
Exactly.
Described himself as a pedophile, full blown, while also sending a bunch of explicit photos. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison for other charges in 2004. So there wasn't just those two guys. They all think, though, the head honcho involved in all this had stuff to do, even though he hasn't been convicted of those. We'll talk about him next and our reviews of this. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. Mike, the intern, Jay Stevens, back in the studio. It is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 181, discussing Quiet on the Set, the dark side of children's television. So, of course, the guy who put all these shows together, executive producer, his name was Dan Schneider. And
seemed like a fun-loving dude.
He's in, well, I always wondered, kind of, because I was an adult. Like, I don't know if I was just like suspect about this because I was like,
street smart.
Yeah, like, well, I developed early, if you will, but I was like, I always saw this dude and I was like, like whenever he was in Good Burger, like he plays a character in Good Burger, right? And I remember being like, who's this dude? Like, what's this guy? And he always kind of gave me a weird vibe.
Another guy, they called him Pickle Boy or something, right? Or Pickle Man or Pickle Boy.
It looks like that Nickelodeon held on to their relationship with this guy until 2018.
Yeah.
There was people, not cool.
Didn't the guy, the stage helper or whatever, get hired back after he got arrested and stuff? He still got hired back.
That's unbelievable.
Put on like how they do with popes in the Catholic Church. They just move them to the next.
At this point, there have been several accusations and allegations brought up against Dan Schneider, but nothing has actually gone to court. So that might change. This documentary might help someone come forward with proof that they can actually take to court if he had something to do with it. If he didn't, I don't know. But again, if you're bringing these people in and they're under your ship and all this stuff's happening, if Jay was abusing people and I was kind of like turning a blind eye, I'm involved.
Yeah.
So he obviously he's not doing that. I'm just
let's get that out.
Get that out there.
Don't sound
Jay's not abusing anyone.
That.
Okay.
Yes.
But if he was, I'd fire him.
Calls.
It's just that simple. Yeah. And so you can't. That's the thing. I look at it.
You're
and I'm like,
you're enabling if you are doing that.
Man. Yeah. It's kind of one of those things, like I said, where you really need to just give it, I don't know. I don't want to be like, watch this and then because I didn't want to do
Now,
it. Like I forced myself.
It was a little long, but I don't know. It's definitely a story that needed to be told. So
very, very true.
It's so you got to take that for a grain of salt. You don't want to hear some of the stuff, but this is life, man.
I would give this 3 empty buckets of slime.
Yeah, I'll give it 3 empty buckets of slime too.
Just because it was hard to watch.
It was,
wasn't like it wasn't informative. It was just very,
and it's just again, if you have children, be aware and protective of children and people around your child, whether it's teachers, babysitters, just
be mindful.
And
don't leave
fail
your kids.
Don't fail your kids.
People that you wouldn't trust with your life. That's just really the rule.
Because you see the parent, like Drake Bell's dad, he's like destroyed from this.
I would in that person's life, and then I go sit in jail, and I would be destroyed even after doing all that. So I can't even imagine. All right, our documentary for next week is called "What Jennifer Did." It's on Netflix.
Ooh, what did Jennifer do?
I don't know. We're gonna find out. Watch it between now and Thursday. As always, you can watch us do this live on Facebook every Thursday at 9 a.m. I play it during my show during that period. Jay plays it during his show at 6 p.m.
The replay.
Always download it as a podcast on our 104.7 The Cave app for free. Again, I'm Mike the Intern.
And I'm
Jay Stevens. We watch movies,
documentaries,
so you don't have to. It's Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.